So you try to read the Bible, and it looks like there's hundreds of different versions. So which one do you pick? The first thing to remember is, why are you reading the Bible? The ultimate goal of reading the Bible is to get to know God. So always ask yourself, what's going to help me do that? What's going to help me get to know God? So if it's the same Bible, why are there so many different versions? The Bible that we read today is translated from the original languages, and that's languages, plural. The Bible was written by the movement of the Holy Spirit, but the people who did the writing wrote it in the language that they spoke in that time and in that part of the world. Most of the Old Testament was written in Hebrew. Jesus most likely spoke Aramaic, and parts of the Old Testament were written in that language. The New Testament was written in Greek. The versions today are not the original versions, but translations of the original language. Translations of Hebrew, translations of Aramaic, translations of Greek. So which translations do we pick? If you're already part of a church family, then your choice is made a lot easier. Find out which translation your pastor teaches from, and then that way what is taught from the platform matches what you read on your own. But what if you're not a part of a church family yet? How do you pick a translation if you're working on your own? Hebrew, Aramaic, and ancient Greek were very different from the English that we speak. Well, all English, not just the English we speak today. They all had different alphabets, and Hebrew actually reads from right to left rather than left to right. That makes word-for-word translations very difficult to understand. Bible translators tend to use either a word-for-word format, at least as much as they can, or a thought-for-thought idea. As you might guess, word-for-word translations are closer to the original, but they're harder to understand. Thought-for-thought translations might not convey the exact words, but they make the concept, the idea, a lot easier to understand. Most translations fit somewhere in between. Let's talk about the three most popular translations of the Bible. Number one is the NIV, or the New International Version. The NIV is as close to word-for-word translation as possible while still being readable. My pastor teaches from the NIV. And while I actually read from several different translations, the NIV is the one I use most of the time in my personal study. So what I hear from the platform matches what I read on my own. The third most popular translations, and I will get to number two, you probably know which one it is, but I will come back to it, I promise. Number three is the New Living Translation. The New Living Translation leans more toward the thought-for-thought idea. It sticks to word-for-word translation as much as possible, but it uses thought-for-thought for the difficult ideas. It's very close to our everyday language, so it makes it very easy to understand. I think the New Living Translation is a very good choice for a first Bible for someone who isn't a part of a church family. Number two, the King James Bible was published more than 400 years ago, but it is still considered the gold standard by many Christians. The King James Version was as close to a word-for-word translation as possible using the documents that were available at that time. The language of the King James Bible is beautiful. That's because the words were never meant to be read. They were meant to be spoken. The reading of the word was meant to inspire the listener with the glory of God. The King James Bible sounds great. It makes for inspiring quotes, but it's so different from the way that we speak today that it might make it a little harder for you to get to know God. And remember, getting to know God is the reason why we read the Bible. So, I can't recommend the King James Bible for everyday Bible reading. What? Not recommending the King James Bible? Yeah, I know how controversial that is. Click this link and find out the story behind the most beautiful translation of the English Bible. Thanks so much for watching Jesus Stories, and I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.